This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. I'm even more jacked up to have a buddy on who I've met recently, who I'm going to be spending a lot of time with over the next few years. He is just got a passion for life, passion for really helping others succeed and overcome obstacles. And I had the good fortune to spend some time with this guy down in the Big Easy, having some beignets and some, enjoying a ghost tour around New Orleans, and then just spend some time fellowshipping and really getting to know the guy and really see how he's helping a lot of people out there. And I knew it was valuable enough to have you guys come on, or have him come on here today to share his message and what he's doing for all of you that are out there, whether you're watching us live on YouTube or Facebook or catching us on our radio station network or listening to the podcast. I think if you've got big plans in the future for whatever you're doing, whether you're a real estate investor, a note investor, or some other passion thing that you're doing, I think we're seeing a new evolution in people really communicating and sharing their message, getting out there. And so I'm honored and jacked up to have my buddy, Dr. Mark T. Wade, join us here on the Note Closer Show today. He's the founder of the Virtual Summit software and creator of the One-Day Summit formula. He went from brick and mortar businesses to online multimillionaire using collaborative marketing strategies such as the One-Day Summit. This guy, you know what? He's got an interesting story. I'll let him share a little bit more of a story in it. But hey, we are honored to have you join us here on the Note Closer Show today, Dr. Mark.
Brother, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. Definitely thinking back to our time in New Orleans. We had some fun out there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Your favorite city is the Big Easy. Good food. I'm still wanting some more gumbo. I think I had gumbo every meal.
I actually had shrimp and grits 4 nights in a row. It was like I was like sampling the best shrimp and grits in New Orleans. I didn't even intend for that to happen. I enjoyed it so much the first night. I tried it the second night, and then the third night it was like just an easy go-to. So yeah, it's a great place. Yeah,
definitely. And we hooked up. You had me on your podcast, the Virtual Summit podcast, which I highly encourage you all to listen to. My episode's been out about 2 weeks now on his podcast. But you started doing virtual summits a while back, and same here. I mean, the virtual summit, when we started doing online summits and online virtual note buying workshops, it revolutionized our business and really was the creation from a failure to help us really take our business to a different level. And you want to talk a little about how you kind of got into doing that and what created that, or your background? We'll dive into that first, Dr. Mark.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm actually a postural neurologist by trade. I have 2 doctorates and about 30 something certifications in neurology, neuroscience, and human function. And I ran one of the most successful posture correction clinics in the country. And
it means you're neuroscience? You're really neuroscience?
It means I'm a nerd is what that really means. Is I'm probably the biggest nerd you know. And it doesn't stop there. I really take my nerdiness into every aspect of my life, including business and passions as well. But what ended up happening with that is, I wanted to help more people and didn't really want to open up more clinics. And so I kind of thought, well, this online business thing seems like it should be pretty easy to do, right? And it wasn't, as we all know. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world to jump out into, but I went ahead and did it. Heard about this concept of a virtual summit from my buddy Pat Flynn over at Smart Passive Income, his podcast, and gave it a whirl. Now, I couldn't do it at the time. I didn't have enough connections. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just trying to wing it. So I couldn't actually run a full virtual summit. But I had 9 speakers, 2 of them being me and my partner. And my ego kind of prevented me from going to the 7 who had said yes and telling them I couldn't do it. Right. So I just decided to run it as a one-day summit. At the time, didn't know I was doing anything special or fancy. I was just didn't want to tell them I couldn't do a summit. So we ran it as a one-day summit. Did pretty well, generated about 5,000 leads, $32,000, which was the first online success we had. But the backbone of that summit ended up becoming a certification, which became a multi-million-dollar certification for that online institute. That online institute became a multi-million-dollar company, which is still there today. It's the leader in its niche and industry. And from that point forward, we ran 2 to 4 multi-day summits and 4 to 8 one-day summits every year in that business and in all of my businesses. And you know what ended up happening from that point, I wasn't a summit expert. I was just running summits to build my business, kind of like you. It's a great way to get your message out to the world, value out to your audience, and to help educate them with things they need or want. But like most things that end up being created, it comes from a need or necessity. We were running these things. I had a team of 5 people on my team running these like full time. And I was like, there's just got to be an easier way to do it. Like you can do a course or webinar without any tech skill or knowledge. And so we set out to actually build a software. And at that time, it was the first and only software dedicated for virtual summits. And that took me in a kind of another direction where I get to actually help entrepreneurs who have messages and impacts to make in the world, get that message out to the world via these collaborative marketing strategies.
And that's one of the biggest things I want our listeners and the folks out in Note Nation to understand, that we're all capable of putting on a one-day summit for a variety of reasons. 1, like you said, just to get the word out what you're doing. 2, lead generation. 3, really expanding our horizon. And I like to say leveraging our peers' database, or leverage our peers to become an expert, because when you surround yourself with good people, you up your game. You know, we're the average of the 5 people we surround ourselves with the most. And then also, of course, hey, if you can pull some profits out of it by monetization or affiliate splits or selling tickets to it, depending on what you're doing, it can be a very easy thing. And 9 people, that's a pretty good one-day summit. What's the average that you see across the board with people that have one-day summits? Is it always 9, or is it 3 or 1?
Well, this is a great question. We should just clarify, because maybe there's people out there that are even like, what is a virtual summit?
That's a good idea,
You know,
Mark.
Scott, what's a virtual summit? It is like it sounds. It's kind of like an online conference or a virtual conference. It's just, it's used more in a way for marketing and kind of lead generation and awareness creation, more than like, I'm going to host a conference and use this to stream it. So essentially a virtual summit, there's several kinds, but the most common one's a multi-day summit. And that's anywhere from about 3 days upwards of maybe 14 days, with kind of 4 or 5 being the sweet spot. And they have anywhere from about 20 speakers to 80 speakers. Okay. And with around 30-ish kind of being the sweet spot again. Usually, unless you're a rock star like Scott, usually it's kind of free to attend, and with some kind of all access pass or something on the back end for monetization. But it's based on a specific problem or topic that an audience needs to have. You bring in really high value experts to solve those problems. So it's like getting access to some really, really amazing people virtually. Okay. Now that's a multi-day summit. We have premium summits, which is paid access to get into it. But the other type, which we were just speaking about, is a one-day summit, which is just like it sounds. It's one day, but it doesn't mean it's a full day in content. It just means that's the amount of time your audience has to consume that information. Has anywhere from around 5 upwards of 15, with 8 to 10 kind of being the sweet spot. Unless you're doing a summit series, then 5 to 6 is more the sweet spot when it comes to speakers. Yeah,
and that's the thing. We all know 5 to 6 people that could jump on for a one-day thing. You know, it's an hour here, hour there. And if you wanted to pre-record it, you could, or do it live. What I've found is that the speakers that we have love it because they go off and double dip. They're going to speak at my event while they're attending another event, and they like it better because they're like, I could literally just do it from the waist up. I don't have to be fully dressed. I don't have to be all work out. If I have a PowerPoint presentation, I don't have to worry about travel. I can do it from home. I mean, you're living in Puerto Rico right now, right?
Absolutely. Paradise, island of enchantment.
So that's the beautiful thing. What is, when you're talking to people, what are some of the most common objections people will tell you, or will say, well, I can't do it because of this?
Referring to speakers not being able to do it?
No, not speakers, but people looking to launch their first virtual summit.
Well, so the crazy thing is, anybody can do a virtual summit now. You know, we have things like the software. We just talked about virtual summit software. Now you could literally have a summit up ready to rock in a few hours with no tech knowledge whatsoever. So the technical aspect is no longer a barrier to entry. Right. So the thing that probably the number one thing people will say when they're like, debating whether to do it or not is like, well, I don't know if I can get experts. Maybe I'm just getting started. Maybe I don't have a whole lot of authority or name brand recognition. And I don't think I could get the speakers. Kind of like what you were saying, Mark, when you first got started. Here's the crazy thing. If I would have known what I was doing, I would have had no problem getting speakers. It's really not that hard, because here's the thing. When you have everybody in the world needs a platform or is looking for a platform to be on. When you're the host of a summit, one, you immediately have authority or influence because you're hosting this. Scott, you just mentioned when you have the experts on there with you, you leverage their expertise. We call it expert leverage. You leverage their expertise, their authority, their credibility, and their audience. Okay, so you immediately gain authority and influence, even if you're just getting started in business or if you're trying to increase brand awareness. But the thing is, everybody else is looking for opportunities to get their message out to the world, right? They're looking for podcasts to be on. They're looking for people to partner with webinars. They're looking for live events that they can be at in person and talk to an audience. And when you host a summit, people are literally looking for the opportunity to speak on it. Now, there's some easier strategies to make it easier to get these people on, but don't ever have that kind of fear that if I host a summit, I can't have speakers on it. Also, if you do a one-day summit, like Scott just said, 5 people, 5 to 6 people in your community or in your network that would be more than happy to hop on with you.
Yeah. And in preparation for this episode, I did my first one-day summit last weekend. We talked about, I've been doing 3 days and 4 day summits and stuff like that. I was like, I've never done a one day. Let me try a one day out because of what I learned from it. And I was like, oh, great. And it was basically me speaking for 6 hours. I just made it very simple. I outlined every 30 minutes. We took a half-hour lunch break and a half-hour break in the afternoon that we ended up speeding up. The only non-good thing was I lost my voice from speaking so much. So it was a one-day summit of one. But you talk about networking, which is really valuable for people. And this is one of the big things that people are like, well, the networking is not as good at a virtual summit versus an in-person summit. And you're exactly right. You're shaking your head no, because you can do things. And I know you can bring people online from just a viewership to being in line, and they can share what they're doing. You can share social media handles. You can share LinkedIn profile names, all that good stuff to really entice that and go from there. Right, Mark?
Yeah. And I love that you just brought up, there's actually the reason I love a one-day summit so much is because there's so many different frameworks in which you can use it for. When we're talking about a multi-day virtual summit, the number one most common reason to do that is to build an audience, a community of people. So prospects, leads, things like that, and create know, like, and trust. I always say a summit is your relationship building strategy. People are kind of skeptical out there in the world, right? They're getting pitched at from everybody about everything, but they go to and they buy from people that they know, they like, and they trust. And a summit is a great way to do that, also including that expert leverage, right? We just talked about. But with a one-day summit, you can use it as a list builder, or you can use it like there's all kinds of different frameworks. Like Scott, you just talked about right there is kind of a solo show, if you will. It's almost like an online course stacked on its head. It's novel, it's new, it's different. We have premium frameworks. We've used these before for launching a podcast, for a book launch, for a product launch, or an affiliate promotion. We've done it for membership branding, live events, as well as masterminds. So like and it's relatively all similar and easy. It's just different tweaks in the messaging we're putting out and the content we're producing to go to the goal, the end goal. So I love that you did that, because this is the other aspect. Say you don't know anybody, or you have something you're trying to increase awareness around or excitement, get engagement from your audience. You throw a one-day summit on the front end of that, and that dramatically increases those promotions.
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, it's one of the things that I have found is that, especially in today's world where everybody's all worried about the coronavirus and attending events. I mean, I'm not making fun of that anyway. It is a serious thing to take in place, but that's the one thing, is that it becomes much more valuable because now, especially with people often being tight budget wise, being tight on travel. God knows how interesting it is to travel these days. All the horror stories you hear, the cost of honestly putting on an event at a hotel and paying $94 for a gallon of coffee. And then that's the aspect is you can learn from your computer, your home, your office. You can save so much money on those travel costs. You can avoid getting sick from bumping into somebody who's got a case of the fungi and still learn and network along the way. Right, Mark?
Yeah, no, and really there's so many positives and benefits to running a summit, but and there's transactional. Well, there's ones we all know and talk about. You generate more leads. You know, I ran a summit last year in one of my companies to enter a new niche, a new industry, and within a week we did 26,000 leads, new leads, emails, and did about $75,000 just from the summit. But I think there's more things that matter more than even just the leads and the money is what I call intangible return on investments. One, authority. You immediately are looked at as somebody of authority or influence because of the people you're around. Two, awareness. Your brand is now, like what I say is, let's say you ran a summit and you generated 5,000 leads. That's 5,000 people that opted in for your summit and that are now like full on relationships with you. But there was at least 50,000 people that got an email about you, that read about you, that heard about you, that you are now on their radar. So exposure is tremendous. But then the other aspect is relationships. Because if you do a summit and you bring people on it, you are creating relationships with those experts, and that could then become strategic partners later down the road. And that is like limitless opportunity with that. And then of course, after the summit, it increases whatever like we call the post-summit profit strategy, whatever your next promotion is, it increases those conversions dramatically. But I would also say my favorite reason, like why I like helping people with summits and why we do summits is more about, I know there's so many people in the world right now that have a message, you know, they have something important and they want to get it out in front of more people. The problem is it's really hard right now to just get that message out and to get people to pay attention or hear you. With a summit, it's one of the most effective ways, whether you're just getting started in business or you already have a successful business, to really amplify that message further and make a bigger impact.
Yeah, I love that, Mark. You're so right. I think everybody has some sort of message inside. It's kind of like everybody's like, I want to write a book. You know, I have a book I want to write. Well, you know, if you have a hard time writing, just do a summit and then transcribe the full thing, right?
Exactly. I mean, that you're bringing up even other more benefits. So you can transcribe it, turn it into a book. We actually even do that for some of our clients. But the other thing is, like, I hate writing content. Like, hand raise. We talked about this at Summit Fest Live. I was like, who here loves writing like content? A lot of people enjoy it. And then there's the small percentage of us like myself that it's like, I procrastinate to the last exact minute before I write a blog or something like that. When you do a summit, you're literally generating almost an entire year of content. You know, let's say we just do a one-day summit. We got maybe 8 speakers on there. That's 8 videos. You transcribe those, just as you said. You now have 8 blogs. You take the videos and you can actually put them on YouTube as well. You can take the audio from that and use it as a podcast if you want. And you can splice all of those up into little sections and use those as social posts. So I'm always like, I'm the lazy guy over here. What's the easiest, quickest way I can get the most value or quality? And that's why another reason why a summit is so beneficial.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you can do it from anywhere, whether it's poolside, with your tank top, sun's out, guns out, right?
Guns out, guns out, Puerto Rico.
Now, one of the things I want to kind of come back to, you said your first summit had 26,000 leads. Your first one-day summit had 26,000.
The first one-day summit only had 5,000, which is still great. 5, yeah, I was going to say, which is still an amazing, amazing thing. And keep in mind, so with that industry, like a lot of this depends. Like, okay, I'm gonna real talk with you right now. Okay, yep. Scott. Like, I personally think list size is BS. We should not be focused on lists. Okay, and I usually like joke about this pun in cheek. It's not about the size, ladies and gentlemen. It's about the quality.
The motion of the ocean? I'm sorry, the quality of the ocean?
No. The quality engagement of that list. And I talk about my first launch, $136,000 launch, came from a list of 900 people. Last year, I made almost $500,000 from a list of 1,000 people. And out of those, only about 400 of them were actually opening those emails. So we need to like not focus. And I know you're with me on this, guy. Like, but I hear so many gurus, so many people out there like, I've got 100,000 people on my list and they got like a 3% open rate, right? Like, it's not about how many people. So if you did a 1-day summit and you generated 500, like I've got a client he generated 500 leads. We kind of showed him what to do and he ran with it in a specific niche. His offer is $40,000. He sold 4 of those. He did 6 figures from a 1-day summit with 500 people on it. But you also have to keep in mind who's your audience. Like, is it the one that had 26,000 leads on it? That was to a general consumer. So it was a bigger, broader audience. The Institute is directly towards health professionals. We certify and educate doctors, across the world. So every one of those leads is like 100 normal leads. So it also, the quality of the lead is way more important than how many did you get on your list.
Well, and that's why I brought you back to that, because I think it's such an important thing versus just posting to Facebook or posting to LinkedIn. There are a variety of ways to do things properly to make sure you've got a quality list versus, as they used to say, we used to say in the financial industry or the boiler room, dead wood, an email where nobody's doing anything. You don't want dead wood. You want really good things. I think I talked about that on your podcast as well, was just look, a quality lead is somebody who's opening and engaging, not a prize pig that's showing up for the freebies.
And that's what I really liked about your strategy too, when we were brainstorming what's really working for you guys over there, is when you're going to put really high value and quality into the summit, and you've got some really amazing people that are going to be, giving information that they don't normally just give away for free, like on podcasts or whatnot. Like, putting a barrier to entry in there is even better, because that is increasing the quality. You don't want just everybody in there kicking the tires and asking you 1,000 questions when they have no intention of actually moving forward with you. It is a great, and there's places for both of those, but that right there, it's going to be a smaller audience, but it's going to be so much more engaged and qualified, and you're going to have a lot more fun hanging out with them too.
Yeah, that's the thing, is when you have like minds on a summit, you get good questions. You're not getting like those off the wall weird questions that somebody's just showing up, but they don't have any experience in what you're doing, or you don't want that, because then you're taking away from the really serious people that are valuable leads for you as well, which is a beautiful thing. And I love what you talked about earlier, taking that 1 day or 3 day, turning it into a series. We did that with the Note Camp podcast on a couple of times, where we took, we did it 2 Zoom rooms, and we did basically 30 speakers, and it turned into 30 episodes that have resulted in over another 90,000 downloads on our network, on our kind of Note network for the most part.
Yeah. That's just crushing it right there. And like, to dig into this, like, because people might be going, well, Mark, you're talking about healthcare professionals, or you're talking about, belly dancers. I don't think we were talking about that.
That's always, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Like, so if belly dancing network, whatever, like, no, the point that what I was going to actually bring up here is what I'm really in. Scott's doing a little dance right now.
Shake, baby.
is the diversity that we're starting to see people using summits for. So before, it's very, very common in the health space, very, very common in the internet marketing, digital, information space. But we're starting to see like amazing people like doing it in the notes space. Also, I'm really liking this last year, we're seeing a lot more people in the brick and mortar businesses starting to use this. So like, I could be running one international, right? I can be here in Puerto Rico. My audience could be all over the world because maybe I have an information product. But let's say I have a brick and mortar business and I work in a specific city, and I want people to come into my business, or, take a look at what I'm offering. Maybe, if I'm a painter, for example, and I'm painting houses in Kansas City. Well, what I could do is I could run a 1-day summit. And the way, like, let's talk about how you would do this if you were going to put on a 1-day summit. You always start with who's your audience, like who's your customer, like what's the end goal, where are you taking them? So in this example, we want somebody who wants their house painted, okay? So that's what they want. The solution is their house getting painted. Well, what's their problem? people would say, oh, their problem is they need their house painted. That's actually not their problem. That is something they need. But what are they actually thinking about? Well, when they drive home,
they
drive home, they go, my house does not look as good as my neighbor's house. And they're jealous, they're embarrassed. So we actually look at some intrinsic things here. And then of course, they're not going to do it on their own. So if we talk to the intrinsic or the emotional reason that focuses on the problem is my house doesn't look good and it needs to be painted. But emotionally, I'm embarrassed. I don't have the time to do it. My neighbor's house looks better and has got a better car than me, and I want my house to look better than his, et cetera, et cetera. So now what I can do is I can set up a one-day summit, and I can find people in my community to be on my one-day summit as speakers. So look at these more as like referral sources. So who would be great referral sources for you and your business? So the painter might be looking at people who are, doing other home remodeling. So maybe they bring somebody on who does kitchen work. Maybe they bring somebody on that does, lawn or yard landscaping, right? Like, and you can you make it however you want. The point is, those are people that are doing stuff on their businesses. Now you could also just make it superly focused on how to paint a house and give away all of this amazing information. You could have other painters on there even that have audiences of people who want their houses painted and talk about different ways, different strategies of painting your house, different techniques. And what you're doing is you're creating know, like, and trust and positioning yourself as the authority. Because you might be thinking, well, Mark, why would I bring my competitors on to my summit? Well, you're the one hosting it. So everybody else is looking at you as you're the authority. They're speaking on your summit. So what they do at this point is they generate an audience of people in the community that have this problem, have this interest. And now you have this list or this community to start marketing to, building a relationship with, give them an opportunity to come into your office or your brick and mortar business and take advantage of something. So I'm loving how we can use one-day summits both from a virtual standpoint and selling virtual products all the way down to a brick and mortar business.
Yeah, that's the thing is the more you can be virtual, and we all know the expensive cost of doing an office. I think you probably have more scars and other people have out there doing some of your background. We'll get to that a little in a second, because I think it's just an interesting story of passion and determination. But that's the thing is the more you can do that's evergreen, the more that you can do stuff that's online that doesn't require hosting. And here's the biggest thing. We all know putting on an event is exciting. It's ego. It's total cortisone shot. It's totally the dopamine's kicking in when you're standing on stage, right? Who doesn't like to stand on stage in front of an audience of 5 people or 5,000 people, right? But you have to approach it like, oh, I'm standing in front of an audience of 500 people or 5,000 people that are showing up here for the summit. You don't know who's going to see that. And that's why I love podcasts, because I'm like, hey, I'm going to be on somebody's podcast that's in front of their audience. Maybe it's only 100 people to listen to that episode. It's still 100 more in an hour than I had sitting on my ass watching, Marvel, movies or whatever that.
I completely agree. And like, depending on the audience, I mean, like, especially virtual, I feel like we've kind of numbed out, or we've gotten, we blazed over. We start, because we talk about like leads and, conversions, and we've gotten so much in the woods these days in online businesses and businesses in general. We forget the fact that that's not a lead. That's a person. Like, that is literally a person. If you have 5, because I've seen people run a summit and they've generated maybe 500 leads, and they were all, sad because they wanted 5,000. I'm like, that's 500 people that spent a day or a couple days with you. Like, that is more value right there than anything else. Keep talking to them, keep that relationship going, because 500 leads, 1,000 leads, that's actually a 6-figure to 7-figure business right there. You don't need 100,000 people. So views, leads, I feel like we've kind of numbed over. Like, Remember, those are actually people. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's more than just, hey, I want to put on a summit and go and do it. You should take some time to pre-plan it, to look into it. And then really the most important thing is after the event is that nurturing, that talking to, but to really have a valuable after event, you really need to talk with and see who's on there. Really, surveys, I like using surveys, incentivizing people to fill out the survey, and then they get the replays or something like that. But let's talk about that aspect. At what time, or what kind of time frame? I'm only bringing this because I've had some friends that are like, oh, I want to do this. We'll do this next year. I'm like, it's January? Why are you going to wait to 2021 to do this? What's the good time frame you see with success taking place? We talking a year, 6 months, 2 weeks? What's kind of the ideal time frame to start promoting an online virtual summit?
It really depends, one, on your workflow. Like, are you like just swamped up to your eyeballs and you only got like an hour or two a week to do it? Or can you spare maybe five to 10 hours a week? Typical multi-day summits, like the kind of going thing is like about 90 days. I like to give myself 120 days. When we work with clients, we ask for 5 days, but it's because, or excuse me.
5 months, you mean, not 5 days.
I was just about to say 5 months. 5 months. God's like, how in the world? If it's a one-day summit, actually, my partner's put together, and just like you did, she's put together one-day summits in a matter of a week. But we ask for about 5 to 6 months when we're building out, like in our Viral Summits concierge service, because we're pulling out all the bells and whistles. Like, we're not just putting on normal summits. We're creating Netflix style, TEDx style summit, docu-summit series, things like that. But like in our own summits, 90 to 120 days is pretty good for a multi-day summit. If you're doing a one-day summit, really, the first one, give yourself 60 to 90 days. But after you've done one and you understand the concept, 30 days is really all you need. And I always say too, with a one-day summit, this is why I love the One Day Summit series and why I'm so passionate about this for brands and businesses starting to incorporate these, is because when you do another one-day summit, it's not like twice as much work. It's like 50% more work. And if you do a third one, it's not 50% more work. That one's like 25% more work, because everything you're doing, essentially, you've got the structure, the foundations, all of the other aspect. It's just now it starts to get into the outreach and the interview. And that really doesn't take a lot. I mean, it may take some time, but it's not really that time consuming, especially if you're only doing 5 to 6 interviews, right?
Yeah. And that's the great thing. Some people are like, it doesn't take that much. And there's some easy tools. It's actually, I don't say it's more work. I actually say it's less work, because you already know what's going on. So it gets a lot easier. You're not having to set up like a Calendly link for the first time, or setting up virtual summit software. You've got it down. You know exactly how it's going. You understand an email system, a better aspect of things. And then you understand that with virtual summits, the majority bulk of your signups are probably going to be that 3 weeks, 2 weeks out, because they don't have to book travel. But you use that extra 60 days to build awareness, to get in front of people and follow up. Because we all know 80% of sales are made after the 5th contact. And as long as you keep that in mind, that, hey, you're going to have to hit people multiple times. You just cannot send one magical email and sit back and, okay, we're good, we're booked.
Yeah, we're getting in advanced strategies, but like the simplest version is you leverage the experts who are speaking on your summit to help target their networks, their audiences. Again, we call it a collaborative marketing strategy. Everybody on the summit's collaborating together. It increases exposure for everybody, makes everybody look good. Everybody generates some leads and some sales as well. And I'm a big fan of win-win-win scenarios. Now, to even extend that is we do, and I know you do some aspects of this as well, Scott, like we have our pre-summit kind of launch or pre-summit promotion. And I mean, we'll take the concepts of the summits, like back to those problems or those pain points, and we'll do some videos around 1 or 2 or 3 of those specific pain points. Same concept. We'll transcribe it. We'll use that as a blog. We'll put it out on Facebook, and we'll pixel it all so that anybody, and we'll tag our speakers in it, and it just starts to create awareness around it. And we're pixeling people. So we're not like necessarily pushing hard for them to go opt into the summit or buy anything. People are just getting value out of it. And then later, once we go to do the promotion, we can retarget them if we want, or, we've already built up some type of audience, or, things around that. And you still leverage the speakers at that point as well. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that's really one of the more powerful reasons for a newer business or brand to do a virtual summit is, if you're trying to generate an audience the old fashioned way right now, organically, it's going to take a while. And if you're going to pay for that through Facebook ads or paid media, you're going to spend a little bit of money. Like we call summits a self-liquidating offer, meaning it's one of the only marketing strategies out there that you can generate leads and you don't have to pay for them. Like we don't usually run many Facebook ads for our summits. So that means all of those leads, like my first summit, the 5,000 leads summit, I didn't run ads on that. So I generated 5,000 leads without spending any marketing. If I were to pay that in Facebook ads, that's over 6 figures in Facebook ads, right?
Yep.
So that's a huge benefit for those businesses and brands that are just getting started.
Yeah, that's the truth, is we don't run, and Facebook ads are very misconceiving on the effectiveness these days. It's changed out there. If you know what you're doing and leveraging things, I mean, I call it fake book, because you're not getting a true aspect of things, and people are seeing, and there's a variety of other ways out there to list gen or generate lists and leads for you to get people in there. Other people's posts, other people's networks, running ads. I mean, you could easily buy a list of people you're looking to get on relatively inexpensive as well from some places. You know, we have done that in the past too as well. But you guys have done a great job with your software. Why don't we dive a little bit and talk about all the bells and whistles that your virtual summit software has? Because I think it's an important thing for people out there, that if you've got a tool that makes life easier, and your tool definitely does that for a lot of people, Mark.
I appreciate that. Well, it came out of necessity. Essentially, in my other business, it's me and my partner, Dr. Krista, the beautiful Dr. Krista Burns, and she's the content creator. She's also the face of that business. So I was the marketing strategy, the concepts and how we were going to position things. And it got to the point where if we were doing a summit, and she was like, sometimes it would come down to last minute things on, I'm not going to point any fingers, but on somebody else.
Tell her I said hello, by the way.
I will let her know. And it would come down to me having to jump in there and do it. And I'm like, man, so on top of other things, I joke about that. But essentially, when I did decide to create this, because I was like, there's just that first summit I talked about, it had 9 different pieces of software, 26 plugins. It took me over 100 hours to create and still look like a 3rd grader built it, right? So I was like, there's got to be a better way. So that's why we built the Virtual Summit software and then one of the main concepts behind that was my litmus test was Dr. Krista had to be able to use it without having to ask me for help, right? Like I wanted it that easy and simple. But essentially it covers, it will do everything you need to do to run, to prepare, create, host, and run a summit. It's got some really cool stuff. I won't bore people with all the features and stuff. I would just look at it like this: to run a summit, you got to have a landing page. You got to have a place for people to opt in. You got to have a way to sell them, something on the summit. One of my favorite things about the summit is the speaker management tool. The summit software is the speaker management tool. I'm sure you have these too, Scott. We could compare Excel documents where you've got every speaker listed out, maybe 60, 70 speakers, the dates you contacted them. Did you get their bio? Did you get their headshot? Did they give you their links? And it was like a maze to figure out. That was one of my first things with the software was I want the software to be like you have a virtual assistant working for you. And it literally reaches out, follows up with the speakers. The speakers can log in and add their own stuff to it. So that's a pretty cool thing. Additional items is it literally probably one of the more revolutionary aspects, also beneficial for people who are wanting to continue to build their audience ongoing, is we built a proprietary piece of technology into it called the Ever Summit. Whereas with one click of a button, the software will rerun the summit as if it's live, ongoing forever.
Wait a second. Whoa. Hang on a second there. So you have the replay, you have the videos in there, and it just reruns it on an evergreen basis?
Even better than that. Let me dive into this for you. So, we used to use other softwares, there would be and it would cost us something like a couple grand a month for these other softwares just to rerun our summits. Because I've got 30 summits sitting on shelves, right? I wanted to be using those ongoing. And don't let me forget, Scott, I would love to get into our Summit Ascension business model so this actually makes sense for people, because I've built several 6, 7, multi-7-figure companies with this 3-prong approach. But essentially the software, after the summit's over, you run the summit as if it's live, which this is the other benefit of the software. You don't actually have to do anything. The software unlocks, locks, opens, assigns, delivers everything to the audience without you having to do anything. That way you can just focus on marketing, engagement strategies with your speakers and the attendees. The software unlocks and locks everything. All that's taken care of. Now, once it's over, usually people who run a summit, after the summit's over, it's just sit there and then they'll do something called an evergreen strategy, which is, okay, I've got this thing, this summit, which is extremely valuable. It's got 10 or 20 sessions of very high valuable content. So now I'll sell this. And those are great for like upsells, flash sales, down sales, affiliate sales, things like that. But they're not very good at generating more leads, because as an audience, or as a, I guess, you know, again, here's going to come my nerdiness comes out. Like, I love psychology. So when we look at like why people do what they do or don't do what they do, when people, and we're all guilty of this, when we look at something and see that it's over, we assume it's old, and we automatically assume if it's old, it's no longer valuable. Now, you and I both know those 20 videos that took us a lot of time and energy to do, those are as valuable today as they were yesterday. So why are we not still getting the use or value out of those? So the software will actually, you set whether you want it to be monthly, twice a month, once a week, whatever, and the software will actually rerun the summit as if it's live, meaning you just set you continue to direct traffic to it. So maybe it's a podcast, or maybe it's on a blog. We're not talking about paid strategies. We're talking about organic strategies that just float out there. People see it and they go, oh, you know, maybe you talk about this blog where you're talking about this one problem, and hey, if you want more information on this, check out the X Summit that we did that dives into even more things there. They click over to it and they see, oh, the X Summit starts next Tuesday. They go into the summit, and the summit tags each person, and it opens the summit as if it was live on the appropriate days and times, and then closes it up. Now, if that person purchased the all access pass or whatnot, they have ongoing access to it. If they don't, and they go back to the landing page, it says, oh, sorry, summit's ended, upgrade. But all other people that go to that same landing page see summit starts next Tuesday. So it really changed the game. And it's one of the reasons, it's probably one of my favorite features inside the software, but it's really changed the game as far as being able to, like, we use summits as the beginning of our customer journey. Like this, anytime, if I go, I've got a certification, a coaching program, a membership, a mastermind, that's the thing I want to sell. I don't start with that. I don't start with some information about that. I go, that's what I want to sell. What summit can I create engagement, awareness, and interest in this topic to create an audience to then sell that to? And then we just set it on every summit and let it continue to do it ongoing forever.
Man, I mean, that's just freaking awesome. I hope you guys took some nuggets out of that, because that's one way to have it rock and roll, as in the words of Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond if you needed to, right? Yeah. Now, your software, and this isn't a sales pitch, it's pretty damn affordable for everybody. You want to talk about kind of that aspect, because we're not here to pitch the software. We're just sharing some good stuff, but it's a tool. It's a very valuable tool of that. And you guys all should know here in Note Nation that, you know, I don't bring on somebody and talk about product unless I believe in what they're doing. I use it, or others that I believe and trust are using it. And I'm a big fan of what Mark is doing. So what's the cost of your software there, Mark?
Yeah. To put this in perspective, that first summit I created, I built on my own, the 9 pieces of software, 26 plugins. That cost me $7,000. And every summit after that kind of cost that. Now, if I would have other people build it for me, anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. This software, you can actually get at $97 a month.
Boom. Mic drop.
So affordable is definitely is the case there. So.
Yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing. You sell one ticket at $97 on a monthly basis, you're in the black at that point going forward. You know, you sell instant access, but hey, get the replays for $97, which a lot of people do. You know, and then you're off, as you said before, you've got something big on the back end. You're offering up a class, an in-person coaching, one-on-one training, a mastermind. You know, things like that, a continuity thing where it's a membership or something like that. It's a really valuable thing that you can look at doing for everybody. So that's freaking awesome, dude. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. We hinted at this a little bit before about the three-tier approach. When we come back and touch a bit on that, Mark, a little bit more about your beliefs on that.
Yeah. So I was referring, like, our business model is what we call a Summit Ascension model. And the reason I say this is a lot of people probably already have, you know, established business models. So this doesn't have to take over a business model. We've seen a lot of really successful businesses and brands just add this as a side step to kind of like almost accelerate their success or scaling. Right. So it's really simple. It's summit, journey, and scale. So summit, whatever and it starts really at the journey. The journey is the customer journey, or what we call the post-summit profit strategy. So that's when we identify what is the problem that our audience has and what solution are we going to create to solve that. So once we've identified that, we go back and say, okay, what's the summit that's going to attract the audience? Because the biggest mistake I see people do, easiest is to say, like, let's just talk about courses. And this could be anything. This could be any kind of sale, is they'll spend time and energy building up this thing. They'll create this thing. And then and they'll spend so much time, they'll love it, and it's precious to them. And it's like, they go to sleep dreaming about it. And then when it's time to sell it, they turn around and there's nobody there to sell it to. You have to have an audience if you're going to sell something. Not just an audience. You have to have an audience that's qualified to engage and has know, like, and trust. So that's why the summit for us always is the beginning of our customer journey. That then brings them into the journey, the customer journey, which is our post-summit profit strategy. We've got a three-step approach with that, which I won't get into the details of that. It's just essentially whatever the next thing is we're going to sell, we have a strategy of doing that. And then the last piece is scale. Now, instead of just using that and being and I see this happen all the time too, people will take the time and the energy to build something, whether it's a summit or any other thing, and they'll do it one time and then it sits on the shelf and collects dust. So we then look at the process, we analyze, optimize, and then automate it. So what worked well with the summit, what worked well with the post-summit profit strategy, we optimize it, we make it better. So what didn't work, what's really cool with the software is you can literally go in and change things on the fly and it's all done and good. And then we automate it. So whether it's the Ever Summit or you're using some other, funnel software or something like that. And then we just have that continue to go. So we have this plethora of one-day summits. So once a quarter, we'll create a new one. So what'll happen, we'll go in, we'll essentially launch the new one. We'll take one of the old ones with the software. We just turn it off. We'll go back into one of our previous ones, optimize it again, turn it on, and just let it run. We'll let that happen for a quarter, and then we'll just keep creating new, but utilizing old ones as well. And for us, we've been able to not have to spend much advertising dollars and not building hundreds of thousands of leads, but building tens and 20s of thousands, but using that to generate 7 figures ongoing. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. Man, that is awesome. I don't know about you guys, but my gears are twitching here. We're going to have a longer conversation after we finish this episode of Mark for you, definitely out there. Now, where you've got an interesting story, and I think I wanted to save this to the end because you guys did something a little bit different and kind of ask backwards. I think what a lot of people consider when they go launch their entrepreneurial career. Can you share a little about how hey, we're going to open a new clinic, but we're going to do it in Italy because we love Italy, and kind of go from there a little bit. We don't want to hear about the $10,000 paint job, but talk a little about that. And I think how that's really set you up for success in the long run from that, huh?
I always say, if I knew how difficult things were going to be before I did them, I would have never done things. So I think being a nerd and being a little bit naive, or maybe probably better put, is just big vision. And I like to just jump in and do stuff. Yeah. So when I graduated with my first doctorate, me and my partner, we wanted to go abroad, so we decided to go to Italy, which now just sounds crazy talking about it, but we decided to go to Italy with we didn't speak Italian, no business knowledge at that time, no connections, didn't know anyone, in the worst economic downfall in Italian history, right? So we should be setting ourselves up for success, right? Yep. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't quite like that. And I think it's the same with any kind of business. There's a learning curve. But that first year for us, was the treadmill effect. So we spent about a year trying to do just about anything and everything. And we were working, we were never lacking in motivation or willingness to work hard. We would work super hard, and it would feel like we were sprinting and never really moving forward in place, hence the treadmill. And what we ended up learning, now I read a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, and in there he talked about the hedgehog concept, which we call the unique expert position. What we realized looking back is that we were trying to do a little bit of everything, thinking it was going to get us more attention and more people in, by offering this service and that service and this thing and that thing, and what we ended up being is kind of the jack of all trades. So after reading that book, in a weekend, essentially, we decided to completely change our strategy, and we decided to focus on posture. And fast forward a year from that moment, we were the most successful posture correction clinic in the country. We were working with 7 professional sports teams, implemented a posture correction program throughout the Italian school system, spoke at over 100, blah, 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 blah. So the point was, the only thing that really changed was niching down and focusing on one specific topic. But what it allowed us to do was, one, we became way more referable because everybody knew what to say when trying to talk about us. They say, oh, those guys do the posture stuff versus weight loss, gluten, this, yoga, but whatever. The other thing it allowed us to do was focus our attention when building our expertise. So instead of reading a little bit about everything, we were able to read a lot about one thing, which made us very quickly the most knowledgeable people on the planet. Still to this date, we're considered the 2 most certified posture experts on the planet. And additionally, it allowed us to hone our skill set so much faster because we were only doing these type of things. We very quickly became very skilled and experts in helping, and it allowed us to get the results much quicker and much more than essentially other people in similar industries or niches. So it was kind of crazy. It took us going over to Italy, and like I said, every month we kind of looked at each other and we're like, I think we should probably pack it in. Like, this isn't working. And then all it took was that one quick tweak for it to be a completely different story.
Yeah, well, and the reason I wanted you to bring that up is you hit so many great nails on the head there about niching down to one thing. I mean, a lot of us have, like, we want to do this and we want to do this and we want to do this. That's the wrong way to do it. Come back to one central focus, one central concept, one idea, and build from there versus trying to do everything at once. And then people don't know. It's a confusing message at that point. But if you know one thing and one thing well, that's the best way to build that expertise level. You'll find speakers or whatever your focus is for the summit, or to get your message out and what you're doing. That one thing doesn't mean you can't add things later on, but start with the one thing, start with a niche, and work your way out from there. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think anybody can learn from that message. And hey, we all learn from our mistakes, what to do and what to do better. Another thing that I love so much from getting a chance to hang with you and Chris is the fact is that starting off, you guys were on a tight budget. You couldn't go to these conferences and workshops. So you created your own book club where you would read a book, she would read a book, and then you would present the book to each other. Brilliant.
It was one of the most powerful things ever, honestly. And like you just said, we were on a very limited budget. Like we were failing in business. We didn't have the money to spend on coaching, on traveling to seminars and conferences. So we said, how can we learn? We were listening to podcasts and we decided to read. We could afford, each a $10 to $20 book. And so we would spend the month reading the book. And then the week we would pick one weekend and then we would each prepare. Now, so this isn't like, we didn't take this lightly. I would spend an entire week preparing a PowerPoint presentation to present the book to her and vice versa. And so Friday, we would pick one weekend. We close the clinic on Friday and Saturday. I would spend all day Friday presenting my book and like defending my book and topics. And it was like that axe grinding, steel there is we would debate this. I'd be like, we should do this. And she would bring up other reasons why we should or shouldn't. And we would fine tune our strategy. And then we would implement it. And then she would do hers the next day. And the key to that is not just the focus on learning it. And then of course, when you present something or teach it, you learn it even better, but it was the quick implementation. We didn't drag our feet the next week. When we said, this is what we're going to do on Sunday, we made steps to implement it. And on Monday it happened. I mean, when we were talking about the UEP, that next Monday, we scrapped all of our marketing plan and completely went into posture. So that is a part of it. When you know something, or if you're paying somebody for advice, like this one blows my mind, Scott. It's like when people pay mentors and coaches and the mentor or coach says, okay, you should do this. And then they go, nah, I can't do it because of this is it. Like if you're paying somebody for information or knowledge, first off, it should be somebody you trust that's already got the results you want. And if that is then the case, do what they say. You'll speed up your success and ability to scale dramatically just by taking fast action.
Mm. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Dr. Mark, what's the best way for people to reach out, to connect with you, or take a look at that awesome virtual summit software that you guys are rocking and rolling?
Absolutely. Two best places. One, we have a Facebook group called Viral Summits, which is me and a bunch of high-level entrepreneurs hanging out, trying to get our messages out to the world. So if you're on Facebook, you can join us over there at Viral Summits. Additionally, you can go to virtualsummits.com, which is where we got information about the software, a bunch of freebies to get started with summits, like our Summitology Foundations training, a bunch of cool stuff like that if you're really interested in kind of moving forward with a summit. And if you want to just follow me, you can check out my personal Instagram at Hustle and Scale. I'm a fun guy to follow, I think. So you can hang out with me on my journeys around the world there.
That's the truth. That's good stuff. And when's the next, oh my gosh, the next event in New Orleans? When's the next Summit Fest Live?
Summit Fest Live. So if you want to be around other amazing entrepreneurs who have messages and are impacting the world while you build and get that message out to the world, you can join us at Summit Fest Live. It's always the first week in February. So no matter when you're listening to this, the first week in February, or you can just go to summitfestlive.com, grab an early bird ticket right now, and join me and Scott. Scott's going to be one of our featured speakers there. So you get to hang out with him in person as well. And I'll say,
that might not be a positive thing.
No, it's totally a positive. So we had Scott do a couple sessions at this last event, and I swear all the other speakers who I know very well and are very well respected and kind of the gurus in their little industries or niches, they were all coming up to me, Mark, where did you find this guy? He is like a hidden gem of wealth and of knowledge. So lots of compliments were paid to you, Scott.
Well, I appreciate the invite. I was honored to be there and glad to give back in any way I could. So looking forward to next year. And we definitely have to hang out somewhere between now and then for sure, brother. All right.
Absolutely. And thanks everybody else. I just want to kind of leave you with this is, look, I personally believe no matter where you're at in your business or brand, no matter what you've got going on, I know that you have a message inside of you that the world needs to hear and an impact that you need to make. So no matter what you're feeling or what you think, just do not give up on it. Double down, triple down, and make it happen because the world needs you.
Love it, love it, love it. Guys and gals, take Mark up on the Opportunities. Check it out. Join those groups. We'll have all the links in the show notes or in the description of our YouTube channel. Once again, if you've got a message, you got something you're really focused on, it's much easier now than it ever was before. And if you're letting people tell you that you can't do it, you can do it. And Mark has made it a whole lot easier with what he's done out there. So go out, take some action, check it out, everybody. And we look forward to seeing you all at the top, everybody.